of being here with you at last. Yay! I think we're better known maybe for our principles, which are printed on the back of our order of service here, but at the same time that we approved the principles as a General Assembly, the delegates to the Unitarian Universalist Association who meet each year, we also approved sources, actually originally 5 sources of our living tradition. Our gray hymnal, in fact, is organized around them. Next time you open one up, have a look at that. But let's have a quick look at that number. 3 of them are, I would say, specifically sources that might show up on the syllabus of a college course in religion. They're explicitly religious. There are Jewish and Christian teachings which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. And I think it's right that they get a special mention, although some wish they did not, because Unitarian Universalism grew out of the liberal Christian tradition, and in many ways our services still show the marks of that. We're obviously in a culture that's dominated by Christianity, being a largely North American religion. So this says, listen, this is where we come from, and here's what we've done with it. And then there's the source, wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life. Like the Taize community, we want to draw upon other religions around the world respectfully, not in an appropriative way, but recognizing that people have found and practiced wisdom in so many ways over the millennia. And why should we learn only from the people in our narrow band of ancestors? So we also wish to look to the world's religions. And then several years after the delegates to the General Assembly articulated our 5 sources, the pagan voices among us brought a 6th to the floor, and another religious tradition was added, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions. That's, in a nutshell, why each of the readings today is from a different faith tradition, like the founders of Taize. We can't possibly limit ourselves to just the traditions that we were born in. But we don't look only to sources that are recognizably religious. And when I give my elevator speech to somebody who wants to know what is this odd religion with the very long name that I'm a minister in, this is always one of the things I tell them about our many sources. That we also note the importance of, here's the first source listed, direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder. How each of us is grounded in our own experience of being alive in these bodies, in this spirit, on this earth, and that we have our own experiences that are inevitably one of the sources of our religious guidance. Ditto for words and deeds of prophetic people, which means prophetic in the sense, thank you, Joy, of our social justice work, of our witness to what kind of world we want to make, and the process of making that world, and the way they inspire us. And then finally, there's the guidance of reason and the results of science that come to us from humanist teachings. And how could we be Unitarian Universalists without applying reason and drawing on what we have learned from science? But even with these added, this list is far from complete. I mean, don't most of us draw on the arts as a source? Certainly our services do, with the music and the altars and art and dance, drama, all forms of literature, poetry especially. And aren't we all inspired by nature? Not only in the context of earth-centered traditions and the way that source reminds us to pay attention to the rhythms of nature, but in our daily experience of watching the waves come in and go out, of looking for hummingbirds in our garden, pausing when we see a dragonfly and that glint on that amazing, clear architecture of their wings. Okay, so if I'm counting right, that brings our sources up to at least 8. And as we get more specific, the list only grows. We each have so many very particular sources. It's not just that we draw on the arts. is that, well, a few weeks ago, the service was about fish concerts. P-H-I-S-H, if you missed it, fish concerts. I mean, maybe there's people who also listen to F-I-S-H concerts, and I'd really love to talk to them about that. The cultural and artistic sources might range from Dungeons and Dragons to classical Western music. There's specific sources in nature that inspire us. Some people go to running water. Some people are inspired by the roots of trees. And then, of course, there's all the specific spiritual practices that we engage in that become as individual as each person. So how many sources do we have? 5? No. 6? No. 8? No. Really, the number is infinite. And that's one of the hallmarks of Unitarian Universalism, that for us, there is nothing that is outside the realm of the sacred. Everything, however ordinary, however humble, however supposedly secular, is potentially a source of truth and beauty and wisdom. The possibilities are endless.